Now, how many oceans, deserts, mountains, forests? You might want to include that in your story if you are writing anything to do with these places or these settings. What are the natural resources and how do they impact your story? So yeah, you want to focus on all 5 senses. You want to focus on touch, taste, smell, hearing, seeing. Make your world feel real. Step 3. So you're going to populate your world. You're going to put people in the world, right? So populate your world. Are there inhabitants, people somehow different from you and me? You know, are they higher ups, people that are a lot lower, different classes, things like that? Are there aliens, monsters, or some new type of species? Like I was saying, gargoyles, whatever, some snake, human thing, anything. Determine how your person will look and how they live. You want to include that as well. How does this person live? Or do they live in the ground, in a cave, in the river, wherever? You want to include that as well. How they live, like what do they eat, stuff like that. You might want to include that in your story, depending on what you're writing, right? So character building questions you might want to include in your story. So how big is the population? Is it a big population? Is there like 1 million people in there? Are people dying out? The numbers are getting slimmer and slimmer. How big is your world? How did they become part of your world? You know, did they slide through a portal somehow? Did they get teleported there? Things like that. Do they have a class system, as I was just mentioning? Do they have a class system where there's rich, low income, lower class, things like that you want to include in your story, if that's what your story is? What are the genders? What are the races and the species? You want to include that as well. Maybe it's an all-female world or something. That might be different, or all-male world. Like, that would be really interesting to me to know how that world would be. Like, I'd love to know, like an all-male world or an all-female world. That would be pretty interesting. So maybe that would be a story that somebody would write about, how that world would be if there were no females. Like if that was the last female alive, how would that story work, you know? Or if there's no more males alive in the story. That's pretty interesting. Maybe I'd want to read that. How did the people get along in your story? Are they fighting? How do they get along? Does anyone speak the same language? Hard to communicate, like, or maybe your story speaks everybody the sign language or something. Really, what resources does your people in your story enjoy? What are the alliances? What resources do they lack? Are they looking for resources that they do no longer have, and they have to go elsewhere to another city, another country to go get that, to go get the resources they need? So number 4, you want to establish the history of your world. So for example, step 4 would be Lord of the Rings, where they focus on an ancient war. Or number 2, Hunger Games, which is built on decades of oppression, right? Where they go, they get recruited, right? Where Katniss volunteered to be tribute, because otherwise it would be her sister. 3, Divergent trilogy, where they were unaware of what the world used to be like before they were there. So those are some examples where you want to establish the history of your story, the backstory. So consider the deep past, what happened to fuel present, the economy, the environment, culture. Some of the power shifts, the religion, technology, political attributes. Was there trauma? Was there wars, famines, plagues? As you mentioned before, like in I Am Legend, there was a virus going on and things like that. And then people had to do what they had to do to live, and there's only a few people left. Some other world building questions that go along with establishing your world, the history of your world, would be who have been the major rulers? You want to establish that. What took place during their reigns? Who are the enemies of your world? So that is establishing your history of your world, basically providing a backstory to your current story of how things have played out. Step 5, we want to determine the culture of your world. Is there religion in there involved? Is there a society? Is there politics? So in Star Wars, for instance, there was religion where the Jedi versus the dark side, and the societal structure, slaves and those that were free. Politics and trade in Star Wars also played a huge role. So some other world building questions when it comes to determining the culture of your story. Is your world totalitarian, authoritarian, or democratic? Those are some things you might want to consider in your story. Do your inhabitants speak a common language? How do your characters behave? Will they break the rules? Just like Katniss in Hunger Games, where she figured out how to break down the glass wall to end the game. Like, there's no more games, buddy. That's it. Did she break rules? Are the rules fair, or is society opposed to them? How are the inhabitants punished for these things? What is the religious belief? That's another question you want to ask. What gods existed, if there are any? How do religious rituals or customs manifest themselves? Is there conflict between religious groups? I want to say, for instance, Christian, Muslim, just for instance. Any random religion you could possibly try to make up. Are there any differences or conflicts between them? Just saying, for example, I'm going to talk about no Christian or no Muslims, just for the sake of this world building session. That's what we're on. How do different social classes behave? Right? Middle class, how do they behave? The rich people, how do they behave? Higher class, lower class, how do they behave? Right? What do they wear? How do families, marriages, and other relationships operate? Inhabitants respond to love and loss. What behaviors are forbidden? How gender roles are defined. So I want to go back to the behaviors that are forbidden. Some stories where you can't touch other people, or something glorious could possibly happen if you touch a male, if you're a female, you make your story as believable and as creative as possible. So what defines their success in the story or failure? What and how do they celebrate? Do they work? Final step, which is step 6, which is power your world. You want to set it up, you want to light it up, light that thing on fire. You want to set that world up, power your world. Is your world energized by equipment or magic? For me, I would choose magic, but who really knows? Equipment involved, is there tech like artificial intelligence? Is it a space themed or time travel? I was also stuck in between there too. Creating a portal, time travel, I might go along those lines, or futuristic weaponry. Or focus more on simple technology like swords, guns, magic, which allows you to take your world building to a whole other realm because it's magic and you can just create. Make your world as realistic and factual as possible. Include how things work if you're talking about magic, droids, robots, for example. Explain how it works or how it's used and why. So some world building questions you want to include for your power your world would be, does magic exist in your world? Would you be including magic? How powerful is it? Where does it come from? Is it from within? Do you drink something and then all of a sudden you have all this magic, or you find a book and then somehow you know everything now and all the magic is within you? Again, be as creative as you want to be, but don't get too lost and go too far with your creativity. How does it manifest itself? Can it be controlled? Who welds the story? Can the magic, for example, be learned, right? Is it learned, or is it just match, or does it happen overnight? Or as I mentioned, do you drink something? You drink a potion and you have all the magic? Do you pick up a book and all of a sudden you're able to absorb all the power of the book and you just know everything? Or are people born with the magic? Or are people born with this type of skill? How does it affect the user? Are wands, staffs used, or are they needed? Do people fear it or embrace it? And what makes the difference? Is there good and evil magic? What other technologies do people use? These are some of the questions you want to ask. Who controls the technologies? How do they use these technologies day to day? Do they use technology for entertainment? Do they use it in governments? Do they use it to gain or maintain power? Like in Fantastic Beasts, have you watched or read that story? Do governments use it again or maintain power? Do they use it against us, or do they use it to, So these are some of the questions you want to consider when writing your world building story. So in closing, there are rules that you need to follow to stay consistent. As long as you follow some of these rules, or most of these, you will have a pretty good story. As I said, there's rules that you want to follow to stay consistent in your world building, which involves a lot of preparation, exploring, and commitment for it to feel and sound believable. You can go as far as you like in your writing, crafting your world. You can choose to keep it as a short story, as I'll be doing for mine, or a full novel. It's up to you. It's totally your choice. Okay? So think relatable, believable, and consistent. Those are the three things we're going to be focusing on mainly when we're writing the story. Relatable, believable, and consistent. So remember the laws you created, which were what we ran over, whether you're talking about religion, political, or physical, whether you're focusing on short story or novel. These are just guidelines for your world building. So it's not the full complete story, but it will help you build your story. Also draw inspiration from real life. By that I mean whether it's a historical event, real personal experience, use that to incorporate in your story. Whether it's a real life, real world fantasy, second world fantasy, or combination of both. So also remember to have fun with it. That's what we're here to do. We're here to create awesome stories. We're here to create fun things that others can enjoy as well. All right. So that is our world building session for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed being here with me. Let me know how your story goes, and I'd love to hear and see what you've written, how your painting goes for your story. Again, the painting is basically like the background, the setting of the story. So you want to create an awesome background, or for when you're painting for your story. So that's going to be like a backdrop to the story of the world building, and then you can share your story with me if you feel called to. Thanks again for joining and tuning in. As always, stay in high vibes.